Yes, as the name suggests, the Negotiable Instrument Act. Fine. So these are basically the laws that I explained to you last session when we were doing the brief. That is, yes, the Negotiable Instrument Act, the Reserve Bank of India Act. Today we will be doing, Melina, I would like you also to be on the screen. So in case if any disturbance, no, you both have to take over because it's extremely important, very important it is for especially those students who are taking up finance. And that's why 1 hour we will be concentrating. The first session will be concentrating on the Negotiable Instrument Act, important points of law. And after that, we'll be doing the very important, that is the rising number of NPA, the rising number of NPA, which is very, very, disturbing fact of the Indian finance economy. Yes, I would like almost all of them to be there so that they will understand the Negotiable Instrument Act team. The Negotiable Instrument Act team. I will request all of them to be present there. So yes, as the Reserve Bank of India, you all know it is the regulator of finance in the country. First, we start up with the Banking Regulation Act and the Negotiable Instrument Act together. What do you mean by banking? Banking is nothing but accepting money for the purpose of lending. So even in our day-to-day transactions, when we lend or when we accept money, we try to accept a small piece of paper that's called the check. And yes, this important provisions of Negotiable Instrument Act will be concentrating today, and your team leader will be speaking in detail about almost all the issues pertaining to the negotiable instrument. Last session, I had explained to you the how Section 13 of the Negotiable Instrument Act. What do you mean by negotiable? So it's a provision. It may be a promissory note. It may be a bill of exchange, or it may be a check. So depends on what are you accepting in a contract. It's a contract of a business maybe, or it's a contract of purchase of any land or maybe your property. Whatever is the contract, we accept, and we accept checks. We may accept some promissory note. We may in some transactions we may accept bill of exchange. So these are very, very important topics pertaining to negotiability of financial instruments. Yeah, and yes, I had told you about the what are the different types of negotiable instruments. That's currency, promissory note, checks, bill of exchange, bearer bonds. Very famous. These are the five important things which are used in business transactions. So we will be concentrating today basically on the civil and criminal offense, which is important for your syllabus as a case study. That's the check. The check will be a very important topic for you. I'll be just briefing to you a very important definition of a promissory note and also a bill of exchange. So if any of this comes for the exam, the statement or whatever you have to write is the same. That is, number one, it's an instrument in writing. Number two, yes, being a banknote or a currency note. Number three, it contains what? It contains an unconditional undertaking signed by the maker. Who's doing it? If I am making it, if I am the drawer, I will sign. I will sign. So I am the drawee, and a particular person will be there. Maybe it's transferred to someone. So today we'll be doing also holder in due course, which may come as a short note for you all. So any instrument, a particular person may hold it in a point of time, and that particular person might have got this possession of that particular document due to some right. And if that right he doesn't is aggrieved of that right, or for example he's not getting that payment on time, he can approach the court. So that is why you say that it's an unconditional undertaking signed by the maker to pay a certain sum of money to or to the order of certain person. So even if it's bill of exchange or even if it's promissory note, these are the words that you need to write in the exam. It might be a short length question, but the answer is same to all: to the order of a certain person or to the bearer of the instrument. So bearer of the instrument is very important. As I said right now, the transferability, the negotiability. Maybe someone needed money and that has been given to other person who is in that brief point of time holding it, and that particular person has also the right. He steps into the position of the drawer, and he is privileged to take an action in case that instrument is not paid to him. So yes, these are the characteristics. We did it last time. It's an instrument in writing. A promise is there. It's signed by a maker. Other formations, unconditional promise it is. Money only, very important is, we describe how much is the amount to be paid. So one of you will be showing you a sample of a promissory note or promissory note. So these are very important topic about promissory note. Yes, the last is that made payable, to the bearer on demand. So whenever he is asking us, we need to pay it. We need to pay it. So today we will see certain criteria under the limitation law also. When, for example, a check is bounced, how the process of appearing in the court we do, how much is the time period that that particular action has to be taken under the procedural laws. So today we will be also seeing the procedural law, that is in case a right has been infringed, how we go for a remedy. That's the power of the Negotiable Instrument Act. Okay, that's the power of the Negotiable Instrument Act. So especially section 138 is, a very, very important topic. So you will also be seeing, what do you mean by a check? Again, it's the same thing, a negotiable instrument which we utilize for paying to the bearer of that particular, check, that the banker has to pay this first amount. So, the banker may return the check due to some reasons, and that is what is called not honored. So in corporate sector, one of the most important litigation that the corporate face is, yes, 138 Negotiable Instrument Act. And yes, the corporate may lose their value if many litigations come across. And therefore, this particular aspect of your corporate banking finance is very important. How when you issue a check, it's very important to see that there is a balance in that particular amount. So one of your team will be speaking on the different types of check. Those are, in short, the self-check, the account-paid check, the post-dated check, the banker's check, yes, the traveler's check, and the cross-check, which we usually use in our day-to-day transactions. Yes, very important is, why do you cross the check? So type of crossing of checks we'll be doing today. In brief, what is the importance of crossing of check? So general crossing, the check bears across its face, and addition to two parallel lines, we write account pay only. So, there is certain importance of crossing of a check. And yes, very, very other important topic we will be doing today is the section 138 Negotiable Instrument Act. What do you mean by honoring a check? This can come for your exam as a full length question. A check is said to be honored if the bank gives the amount to the payee, while, yes, if the bank refuses to pay the amount, then it tantamounts to, yes, bouncing of the check, and that becomes not only a civil offense but also a criminal offense. Okay, yes, some of you will be presenting the a very, very important law pertaining to banking in India, that is the negotiable instrument. So you will see promissory note, bill of exchange, checks, yes, and yes, currency, promissory note, check, bill of exchange, bearer bonds. It's one of the easiest topic in finance. Section 4 defines the, what do you mean by a promissory note? Characteristic of a promissory note: the payee must be certain, payable must, the sum payable should be written properly, there shouldn't be any discrepancies, there should not be any mistake of fact while writing a check, it will come back. So we'll see today the reasons also why a particular check, these are the different types of crossing. the restrictive crossing, it directs the collecting bank that amount, the credit the amount of check only to that particular payee, and non-negotiable, that it is when the words we write not negotiable between the two parallel lines. So this will be a topic of project of your friends who are going to present today on Negotiable Instrument Act. Yes, as I said, section 123 to 131 shows the importance of crossing of a check. So if you are a banker, you need to know what is the importance of why a check, particular check as it can be crossed. And yes, this is the one that I said, honoring of the check. So in case the bank gives reasons, the bank has to give a reason. And before I take up the case, we need to see what the bank has given the reason. Maybe it is stamped insufficient funds. So naturally, yes, sometimes, you know, the bank may call the particular party if it's a high value customer. Just see to it that you transfer some amount so that we allow that party to once again, you know, deposit the check. So these are certain criteria, but this is the discretion of the particular bank whether to, you know, call you up or not. So actually the one reason that a particular you know, matter can go into litigation is a person is issuing a check without sufficient funds in the account. It tantamounts to criminal offense also. And whatever the offense is, whether it is civil or whether it is criminal, in law we call intention. So we lawyers approach the court. The cause of action arises. And here the cause of action is that particular defendant, जिसके against we are filing the petition. So we are the petitioner and the other party is the defendant. So the defendant has to come up with a written statement ki what made that you know, the check to be not honored. So if it's satisfied by the court that maybe, you know, something like now what is happening recently, impossibility, that is something which is force majeure. He was not getting his salary. And so naturally he cannot pay the EMI of the bank, है? So he might have paid post-dated checks to the bank as loan amount, EMI, but his salary is not getting. So if he shows proof to the court, so that's called the Civil Procedure Code. Okay, so when we file a case in the court for Negotiable Instrument Act, in the civil court, the Civil Procedure Code I use, and in the criminal court, the Criminal Procedure Code we use. Okay, so Civil Procedure Code and Criminal Procedure Code are ultimately the procedural laws we follow. Now, what we are doing today are the substantial laws. Substantial laws means the Negotiable Instrument Law, the SARFAESI law, the Reserve Bank of India law, the Banking Regulation law, maybe the Insurance Act, maybe, you know, your contract law. These are called the substantial laws which give rights to a person, and procedural laws give life to that right. If some party, for example, Malina has given a check to, you know, somebody, Jatin, you know, under contract, and that particular check is bounced. So naturally, when that particular check bounces, her right is infringed. Under which right it is infringed? Under the Negotiable Instrument Act. Got me? So under the Negotiable Instrument Act, Jatin had a right that when Malina is issuing a check, she should have that balance in that account. So these are called the substantial laws. Substantial laws is the Negotiable Instrument Act, and procedural laws, we follow the procedure that now Jatin has to file a case. He wants remedy unless he moves the court, and within a particular time specified under the Limitation Act. We need to move the court fast. If we won't move the court fast, the procedure will not be accepted. The judge will dismiss the petition. So therefore, we say that there are certain time limit before which we take an action. So as it is justice delayed is justice denied. So once we file a petition in the court, the procedure follows. And that is the reason we write what is the cause of action and what was the reason, that is without insufficient funds, she has issued a check and my client has been aggrieved. My client has been aggrieved. So the summons is issued, and yes, she as the defendant will appear with along with a lawyer. She won't be able to speak to the court. Her lawyer will address the court, and whatever reasons it is, maybe there can be an out of court settlement also. So these are the procedural laws we follow under section 138 Negotiable Instrument Act. Okay. So yes, alterations if there, then the check is not paid. Post-dated check also, in case there is no sufficient amount given, then also, the check is not honored. So yes, when payment is stopped, for example, some reasons maybe, Jatin wanted cash urgently and already she paid it to him. She already paid it to him. So she will give instructions to that banker. She will give instructions to that banker, let the payment be stopped. So for example, if it's Bank of Baroda, Bank of Baroda, she's giving instructions that this payment has to be stopped. So this is one criteria where a check can be dishonored. Got me? So the very important one is frozen account. So I told you just now, the particular case happening right now. If a case is being investigated, or whatever, the investigating authorities can authorize the bankers to freeze the account of that particular person. No money can be deposited, no money can be taken. So very important clause you need to remember in the exam is number one, no, that is number one, irregular signature. Yeah, one is insufficient funds, irregular signature, alteration should not be there. Post-dated check should be paid only if you all are going to put amount into it. And stale checks, yes, stale checks means tone or whatever it is. Even if it is too much folded after we put it in a bag, the bank may refuse it. The bank may refuse it. So when payment is stopped, and yes, frozen account also, frozen account. So yes, I told you, if you are a good value customer, if somebody from the group is a banker, they might allow to present the check again in the bank for payment, even if it was dishonored on the first occasion. So however, if it goes without saying that, the check can be presented again in the bank only during the period of its validity. Usually it is 3 months. Usually it is 3 months. Yes, very important topic it is. It might come as a case study for you all. It might come as a case study for you all, and they might ask you what is the advice you will be giving to that particular person who is aggrieved of a particular amount not paid to him, though the check has been issued. So you need to write that it's going to be a civil and simultaneously criminal proceedings. Okay, depends on the client. Sometimes the client may say that it may become too expensive, so let us go first for the civil remedy. Let us go first for the civil court remedy. Later on we'll see, if he is not appearing in the civil court, we will try to move the criminal court. Okay, we try to move the Kevin has come. Okay, criminal court. Yeah, so civil remedy, usually a civil suit is filed. When we lawyers, we follow the procedure, and you will see how the procedure is. We give a legal notice to the other party. So if it's Nalina given a check, I give a legal notice to her stating that we may be giving you 15 days time. We may give you 15 days time, and within this 15 days, you are requested hereby to give the amount to my client. Failing which, appropriate legal proceedings will be initiated against you. So these are the languages that we lawyers use in a section 138 Negotiable Instrument Act. Okay, and she cannot reply. Once I issue the notice, a lawyer has to reply to me, and that's the procedural laws. That's the procedural laws. Okay, so she cannot. She may phone up to me and she may say, okay, ma'am, please wait for a while. This is the situation happening right now. I haven't got my salary. Just wait for some days. So it's about me and Jatin to decide whether we need to wait or not, or we need to move the court immediately. because even for moving the court also, if we won't move within that particular limitation act time, then the court only, if I am able to make the court understand why the delay took place, he may dismiss the petition. The judge may dismiss the petition. So the first stage is we issue notice to the party, the defendant. So I am for the plaintiff and someone is the defendant. So I give a legal notice, and yes, she replies to it, her lawyer replies to it. And in case they are not making the payments to my client, then the procedural law begins. I file the suit in the court, maybe the civil court and also the criminal court. So yes, this is the modern enactment. Yes. Why check is important? We prefer to carry a small piece of paper known as the check instead of carrying currency. So in order to ensure promptitude and remedy to the parties in contractual obligations, yes, the Negotiable Instrument Act has also given a criminal remedy. So he can be prosecuted. She can be prosecuted under Indian Penal Code. She can be prosecuted under Indian Penal Code. That means she had an intention to cheat. She had an intention to cheat, and yes, this has caused grievance to my client. So this is a way we plead when a check bouncing case comes to us. Okay. Usually when in our office, we get lots of such cases where, promise has been made and the promiser and the promisee, for example, building constructions, they are giving checks, but now there are so many cases coming to us that the builder is neither giving the amount, the checks is not deposited, nor cash is being given. So people are out on the streets, they don't have money to pay rent, their building has been demolished for reconstruction, but the builder has given checks, maybe monthly 40,000, monthly 50,000. So these are the cases that we lawyers get regarding 138 negotiable instrument. Okay, so we have to move the court. Let the court decide. Yes, it is COVID, and so kindly wait for a while. The builder's lawyer may come and tell the court. The builder's lawyer may address the court in the written statement. These are the things. We are not, our labors are not there. We cannot do anything. So we are not getting the further payments from the investors, and therefore the amount as well. So that's not we to decide. We have to move the court and let the lawyer of the opposite party decide in the court. So these are the reasons why 138 has been enacted. So your expected full length question can be on check bouncing, promissory note, bill of exchange. It may be just some small length question it might be. So just a definition you need to prepare, but this you need to prepare very, very important. It is, I told you, the jurisdiction of check bouncing is right from the Sessions Court to the High Court to the Supreme Court. So with the insertion of this provisions amendment law, the Supreme Court also takes the appellate jurisdiction. Appellate jurisdiction means there are two, that is the High Court and the Supreme Court. So if you are aggrieved, you can move the Supreme Court also, that this is a high value check, and the lower court, in spite of the lower court verdict, maybe the defendant matter is not heard in the court. This is a situation now, it's a pandemic going on and the economy is really down, and maybe the check, maybe the order has been passed, you have to pay 1.5 crore immediately. So he may be feeling that let me appeal to the higher court. So these are the appellate jurisdictions to the higher court. So this is the amendment, very, very important amendment to section 138 of the Negotiable Instrument Act. Okay, so banking and finance laws, usually people take it not serious, but yes, they can be prosecuted and jailed. They can be prosecuted and jailed. No corporates should take any action which is prejudicial and affecting anybody's interest. And that's the Negotiable Instrument Act for you. The latest amendment is enacted, this 2002 Negotiable Instrument Act. Inserts 5 new sections touching various limbs of the Parent Act, and the check truncation through digitally were also amended. And these are the digital, because we have gone into technological phase now. We know the pestle, that is, yeah. So the T for technology is very important over here. So the latest amendment is also there, 143A to 147, that is interim compensation should be paid to the complainant. Interim compensation should be paid to the complainant. Now this is very, very important. For example, if your case study is showing, maybe I'm setting the paper, okay, I'm setting the paper, and I will ask you what is the relief that a particular person has immediately. So it may be a 20 marks, 15 marks question, and you need to write 143A of the amended act. 143A of the amended act, wherein if she has issued a check, I would request all the Negotiable Instrument Act, please, Jatin, they have to be there.
Yes, ma'am.
So these are the amendments. So for example, we are having over there Neha, right? For example, Neha has filed a suit, right? And Neha is not having, sufficient money, and Hiral has given the check, right? Hiral has given the check, and I am for Neha, the petitioner. I am for Neha, the petitioner. So yes, now Neha will, I on behalf of Neha will explain to the court that under 143A, Lordship may kindly grant interim compensation to Neha, to my client. Okay, because her entire her finance is not there. She doesn't have any money. She has done all the work for that particular party, that is a defendant or the respondent. We call the defendant or the respondent, the particular person who has given a check which is not honored. So I on behalf of the petitioner can ask for, in my first appearance in the court, I'll be appearing in the court for Neha. So that day itself, once the petition is accepted in front of a judge, I can put up an application. I can put up an application, and I can request the judge that I need to speak something to you. So that's called, mentioning. We mention to the court that since Neha is in such a situation that she doesn't have a job right now, but she wants her money, so let the court grant interim compensation. Okay, it's similar to interim maintenance that somebody can claim in the family court. So interim maintenance means interim means till the court decides the entire matter, the dispute till the court decides the entire matter, the court will grant interim compensation. Maybe the check was of 75 lakhs. Okay, so after the judge listens to my argument, that is, I will argue under 143A. Got me? Where she will get interim compensation immediately. The moment I move the court, she will get interim compensation if I plead. And my argument should be accepted by the court, the judge. The judge accepts my argument, and yes, he will give maybe 20 lakhs. The question was of 75 lakhs. The judge may ask the defendant to pay her immediately some amount. Got me? So that's the amendment that has been given, a relief to the petitioners which were not there previously. It used to take a lot of time, and the other party used to enjoy. Without making payments. And so many transactions used to come to the court that, the petition used to pile up. Now, because of 143A, I can argue in the court and get at least 25 to 30 lakhs for her immediately, so that her next, business can start. Because her money has been blocked, she has to start another. So, the court listens to the defense lawyer also, the court listens to the petitioner's lawyer also, and they come upon to a specified amount that she has to be getting immediately. So this is the amendment to a very important amendment to section 138, negotiable instrument. Okay, this is the very, very important amendment to the negotiable instrument, that is 143A. So if I'm asking a question for you, if I'm asking a question to you, uh, how can immediate relief be granted? How can immediate relief be granted to the person aggrieved due to section 138, dishonor of a check? So you should be able to write this. That's the amendment to section 143A. Okay, the latest negotiable instrument act 2002, it has been amended. Yeah, so the criminal procedure code also follows. So if Neha is wanting to take criminal action also, I can file in the criminal code. So we are having the civil code as well as the criminal code. So I can file the criminal code, and there the 200, section 200 of Code of Criminal Procedure. The complainant would be required to give his evidence by appearing in person and by making a statement in oath before the court. This all of you know. This all of you know. That is, it's a criminal code. So मैं जो भी कहूँ सच के सिवा कुछ ना कहूँ. So there's an oath which has been taken over there, and that's the procedural law which follows that. Yes, after all the summons and after all the written arguments, even here too we can ask for immediate compensation. A particular amount can be given to her as immediate compensation by the judge. It all depends on how we lawyers argue there. Okay, so section 146, that is Negotiable Instrument Act. What do you want in the court? What do you put up as evidence? The Indian Evidence Act requires that whichever case we are filing, whether it's civil court or whether it is criminal court, in case of banking, there should be the banker's slip, which is prima facie evidence that the judge accepts the petition. The court accepts the petition. So you need to keep everything carefully. Whatever you have had the communication with the judge, with the banker, whatever the reasons, presuming the fact of dishonor, unless and until such fact is disputed. So a mark denoting, they put a seal over there. That has to be pasted in a white paper along with your petition in duplicate. That's the civil procedure and the criminal procedure. Yes, all these things are compoundable offenses. Compoundable offenses means, agrees to have the charges dropped against. So maybe, I know in many of our cases, what happens is when someone like me attend the court, the opposite lawyer is one of my student whom I trained as a lawyer, right? So they tell, Arey, Mama is there, so let us go for an out-of-court settlement. We'll give whatever you want. Withdraw all the petitions. Withdraw the criminal petition also. Withdraw the civil petition also. So usually in most of my cases, there becomes out-of-court settlement, out-of-court settlement, because the opposite lawyer is ready to convince the other party, because you're going to lose the case. So she may go even to the Supreme Court, and it may be double the amount. 1 crore or 80 lakh may become 1 crore 60 lakh. So the lawyer of the opposite party advises the client, so let us have a court settlement, out-of-court settlement. So these are the things that the charges will be dropped. I'll be making a consent term. And I'll be writing it to the court that yes, we have agreed to even withdraw the criminal case. We have agreed to even withdraw the criminal case. And then yes, the matter is compoundable. So certain offenses are compoundable. Under the Indian Penal Code, there are various offenses where the party to the dispute, the petitioner, maybe the complainant, maybe we call them, the one who is the victim, maybe in criminal offenses, the victim, after some dates, they have a meeting sort of both the parties and they try to withdraw. So these are called the compoundable offenses. Yes, section 138 is primary law it's a primary law. So very, very important. It's an analysis of the remedies existing in check bouncing. So what exactly is the basic aim of section 138? It is an analysis of the remedies that is existing in a case where a banker is intimating to the drawee that the draw of the check is not having sufficient funds. Maybe he has issued something which is, a check, an account which is frozen. So maybe after I give a notice from other bank account, they may give a check. Then I don't have to move the criminal code, or maybe I don't have to move the civil code also. So these are the things under section 138. So yes, resubmit the check. There are clauses where we can resubmit the check also. We can wait. For example, now the pandemic is going on. So whatever cases that come to us, people are actually in tears that they don't have anything, and these are the checks that's lying, and they are actually, the owner of the flat is asking us to move out. So what do we do? So we ask them, 3 months, you two don't pay the rent. The government has requested, such things, you also don't pay the rent. Once your money comes, then you pay. So there are, ultimately we give legal advices that after 3 months we will see to it. In after 3 months, if it's not there, then we move the court immediately. And in such case, we request the judge that this was a pandemic and we couldn't appear in the court, and some time period was given to the other party so that his business restarts. And then the discretion of the court, the procedure begins again. And again, I can, under 143A, I can claim for immediate compensation to my client who is fearing that they will be removed from the rental premises. They may be fearing that they may be removed from the rental premises. So, I can claim for immediate compensation. That's called interim compensation in law. Interim means immediate. Until the trial. The trial begins, the procedure will follow. We can't wait for 2-3 years. So the interim compensation act is very important, 143A. Yes, thank you so much. So these are the legal rights in check bouncing cases. It's an analysis of remedies. I told you in my first lecture, ubi jus ibi remedium. What is that? Ubi jus ibi remedium. When there is a right and there is an infringement of right, when there is a right and there is an infringement of right, yes, we having a remedy. We having a remedy. The remedy is under 138 Negotiable Instrument Act. Okay, so yes, reservation of the check, reasons. Yes, her lawyer, the opposite lawyer can defend. They have a right to defend. Yeah, why it got, and if they are ready. So this is a procedure that we follow. The demand notice is made. The demand notice usually as the issuer, I will ask, or maybe, she can also give a simple letter. I give a legal notice. She gives a demand notice that within such period, or I will move the court. Move the court means she will approach a lawyer. And if a lawyer is involved, then yes, they have to come to the court. If a lawyer is involved, the other party has to come to it. It is accepted that I will move the court. I just wait for 15 days. 15 days, we always prepare the petition. Along with the legal notice, we always prepare the petition also, so that we don't delay. And I can give a justice that she can get some interim compensation. Somehow or the other, she can get some interim compensation. Otherwise, she will be thrown out of her rental premises. That may be the reason that she has been issued a check by the builder. Whatever the reason, maybe she cannot continue her business, so she can't earn something. So, these are the things that we give justice to the under the procedural law. Under the procedural law. So today you were learning the that is, today you were learning filing the complaint. Yeah, within 30 days. Within 30 days, I need to move the court. So that's why, along with the legal notice, I prepare the petition. What me? So within 30 days, we don't keep anything for last moment. Because the procedure in the court also, nowadays also, they're accepting petitions. Though it is a pandemic, they are accepting petitions. Only thing is, we need not go to the registrar. We have to go down where a special arrangement is made that if any aggrieved party has any issue, you don't have to think that it's a pandemic and the court is not there. So even still at this stage also, the court is accepting petitions. So we don't have to wait for that. What me? So this is the complaint under section 138. Within 30 days, it has to be moved. Yes. Criminal complaint. Under the complaint being filed, the requisite fee goes, I have to pay the court fees. The judicial magistrate will accept it. Yes, this is a procedural law. Once the registrar accepts my petition, I'm allotted a courtroom. I'm allotted a courtroom, and that particular judge or the magistrate will issue summons to the defendant. And yes, I can also ask for Section 420 Criminal Procedure Code in another court. Subsequently, in the Sessions Criminal Code, I can always move there, and yes, we can ask for arrest warrant. It's always non-bailable arrest warrant. Okay. Yeah, so these are the civil complaints and alternate civil complaints. So in your remedy for a case study, you need to remember that an alternate civil complaint along with a criminal complaint against the defaulter in terms of jail, not resulting in the recipient, the bounce check can be even made in the court. The amount can be paid in the court as court of settlement. We usually, I told you, we do it out of court settlement, and we agree with the judge that we are removing all the other complaints pertaining to that particular person. So summary suits are only permissible in matters of recovery. Yes, a summary suit differs from an ordinary suit as much as it does not grant the defendant to defend himself and to be able to defend. So I can file a summary suit also where the defendant's lawyer cannot, waste the time of the court saying, kuch bhi bahana, some bahana they will start doing, So my client is suffering. So maybe I can file a summary suit where the defendant is not allowed to defend. So this is the difference between summary suit and a, yes. So instructions to close the account. Yes, the banker can also take action because the matter has gone to court. He will not be given any services, future services by that particular court. So yes, they have to face jail. They have to face the jail. That's criminal prosecution. Okay, that's the criminal prosecution. So many of our cases, fearing this, and seeing the lawyer fighting in the court, they give the amount to us immediately. They don't wait. They don't wait. Yes. So this is the check bouncing. If yes, if you do anything wrong, you need to be in jail. That's a criminal proceedings. So I will sincerely request you all to see the latest case that's happening also. Now the team can take over the project on Negotiable Instrument Act. So I'll stop the share right now, and you can share this.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. And till then, till you get them ready, I'll speak to you something very important pertaining to the financial fraud. The latest case, I would request you all in my banking and finance module to please go through what is happening. The ED is also inquiring, the CBI is inquiring, the NCB is inquiring. So how the procedural law is, the criminal procedure code. You know? So if the finance students or maybe the marketing students, if they're keeping an eye on what's happening right now to this famous case, you will understand the importance of finance law. So my next will be the SOFSI law. After that, we will be doing why the ED is important, Enforcement Directorate officers. Okay, that will come under the Reserve Bank of India Act, where one function of the Reserve Bank of India is, yes, foreign exchange management and regulation. Foreign exchange management and regulation. So you will see that in the latest criminal case also of that particular bankers been requested to give all the details to the central agencies, because the Supreme Court under the appellate jurisdiction accepted that a central agency will be involved in this particular case. The latest case that is it. That's hit. So you can learn how the finance laws, the central agencies as enforcement directorate, why they have stepped in. That's very, very important portion in our Reserve Bank of India. When we learn about the preamble, that's the currency management, the credit control, the stability of the Indian economy, plus supervision of banks. And yes, very, very important is foreign exchange reserves. So the bankers are doubting, that central agency is doubting that from his bank, there are certain current account and capital account transactions which has gone abroad without intimating to the central bank. We having the exchange control department in the Reserve Bank of India, which make the laws. the Exchange Control Department makes the laws, they can't arrest. The RBI officers cannot arrest. They don't have the power to arrest, and therefore the matter goes to the Enforcement Directorate, and they investigate. And you can see now, maybe there might be an immediate arrest of the accused also. People are asking why is it going so slow, though the CBI has taken over. You know, this is something which is I want to speak to you, as your finance module is important. These officers don't immediately arrest, because once they arrest, they need to take within 24 hours to the nearest judge, right? And if it is bailable, and if the officers don't have proof, then the judge will grant bail, right? So all this last 6-7 days, they are collecting the proof. The officers, maybe the Enforcement Directorate, maybe the Central Bureau of Investigation, maybe the narcotics, they, like for example, one of you is one of the officer. Unless and until you get the evidences, unless and until you get the confession, then you will tell them you are under arrest. Got me? So it may take 7 to 8 days of this team also, that they are investigating. Slowly, they will tell that particular accused, you are under arrest. You know? So these are the things. And then within 24 hours, they are produced in front of the particular court. And then judicial custody or police custody. Unless and until you are raiding that party, you're asking for all the documents. Because tomorrow, if you present that accused in the court, the judge will ask, what is the proof? They will grant bail. The opposite defense lawyer will ask for bail, right? So these are the finance laws which are infringed by the accused. Okay. So next session, we will be taking the exchange control, the capital account, the current account transactions, money laundering cases. Some money laundering cases, one of you will be made to do the research so that you understand the finance module very well. Okay. So today your group will be speaking the Negotiable Instrument Act. Yes. Yes. Continue.
Good afternoon, everybody. So we'll be presenting you on Negotiable Instruments Act.
Yeah.
So Jatin, just next slide. So these are the topics we'll be covering. What do you mean by negotiable? Types of negotiable instruments, bills of exchange, check, and dishonor of check will be in checks. And what do you mean by holder, capacity of the parties?
Yeah, this can be short length questions for you all. Short length. Yeah.
So my team members would be presenting you about all this. So Mahima would be taking over from here.
Yeah. Yes, Mahima.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm audible?
Yeah. Yes, Mahima. Continue.
So, what is negotiable instrument?
Yeah.
So, you talk about negotiable instrument and negotiability. I put it in simple words, that is, it is a written document. Undertaking a payment obligation is an instrument. And an instrument can be transferred from one person to another, and it is negotiated, and it is called as negotiable instrument.
Yeah.
The basic negotiable instrument that you hold with you is 100 rupees note or any note, because it is a written document. When you say it is a written document, it states, I promise to pay the certain sum of amount to the person, the bearer. The taking an obligation, that it is signed. The governor of RBI has signed, so it is a payment obligation.
Yeah, it's a legal tender. It's a legal tender.
It's a legal tender. You can transfer it from one person to another. So if I give 100 rupees note to someone, that someone can transfer it to someone else.
Yeah.
So it's a basic thing that you can transfer it, and it is negotiated, that you can put forth it to anyone. So the law on negotiable instrument was developed for the practice of the traders over centuries. So the negotiable instrument was created basically for the traders across the world. The common law then entered into this, and in further it was developed as a Bill of Exchange Act in 1882 for UK. So the United Kingdom developed the law stating the Bill of Exchange, and in other countries. The Negotiable Instrument Act was put forth in India in 1881. So it is called as the Negotiable Instrumental Act. The basic Negotiable Instrument Act is promissory note, bill of exchange, and the check. So the first negotiable instrument was created was the promissory note,
Yeah.
and the second was bill of exchange, and
Yeah.
then the third and the last one was the check. So
Yeah.
the type of negotiable instrument will be taken up by my another fellow team member, uh,
Yeah.
and you will understand what is a promissory note.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mahima.
Yeah.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. I'll be talking about types of negotiable instruments. So first is of promissory note.
Yeah.
According to the section 4 of the act defines, a promissory note is an instrument in writing containing an unconditional undertaking signed by the maker to pay a certain sum of money
Yeah.
or to order of a certain person or to the
Yeah.
bearer of the instruments.
Yeah. Correct.
An instrument to be a promissory note must possess the following elements. So they are basically, it must be in writing, and also it should be signed by the maker, and it must contain an
Unconditional.
express promise or a clear understanding to pay.
Yeah.
Must contain certain parties,
Yeah.
and also it should be signed by the maker.
Correct.
So next slide, Jatin.
Please, the slide should be put up fast. Yeah.
So the parties of promissory note, they are maker and payee. Maker who makes the promissory note, and payee who the amount is payable, who the amount pays.
Yeah.
So here is the features of a promissory note.
Yeah.
So in bill of exchange, the bill of exchange is an instrument in writing containing an unconditional order signed by the maker, directing a certain person to pay a certain sum of money only to or to order a certain person to the bearer of an instrument.
Yeah.
Even
Correct.
the essentials of bill of exchange, promissory note are same. It must be in a writing, must express order to pay, must in terms of money only, it also must contain certain parties, other formalities like date, considerations, etc.
Correct. Yeah.
Next slide. So parties of bill of exchange are drawer, who makes bill of exchange; drawee, person who is directed to pay; and payee, person to whom the payment is to be made; and the acceptor when the drawee accepts the bill.
Yeah.
And here is the features of a bill of exchange.
Yeah.
Next slide.
Very, very important. The check.
Check. Check is a bill of exchange drawn on a specific banker and not expressed to be payable otherwise than on demand.
So students, please see that the definition of a check. It's a bill of exchange drawn on a specific banker. Yeah.
The maker of a bill of exchange or a check is called a drawer.
Yeah.
The person thereby direct to the pay is called a drawee. So essential characteristics of check are signed by the drawer, payable on demand, express order to pay.
Yeah.
Next slide. So parties of check are drawer, person who makes a check; drawee, person is directed to pay; and the payee, person to whom the payment is to be made.
Yeah.
So below is the feature of a check. The next slide will be continued by Muskan.
Yeah. So very, very important. She spoke to you. The check is a bill of exchange. So now Muskan will be explaining why check is considered as a bill of exchange and what's the definition of a bill of exchange. Again, there is a drawer, there is a drawee, and a payee. The payee is usually the banker. Yeah.
Yeah. So hi, I'll be talking about the bill of exchange. So it comes under section 5 of the Negotiable Instrument Act.
Yes.
So the bill of exchange is a negotiable instrument in writing containing an unconditional order signed by the maker, directing a certain person to pay a certain sum of money only to or to the order of a certain person or to the bearer of the instrument.
Yeah.
So for example, Melina has sold goods to Jatin on a credit for 10,000 rupees for 3 months.
Correct.
To ensure the payment on the due date, Melina draws a bill of exchange upon Jatin for 10,000 payable after 3 months. Before it is accepted by Jatin, it will be called as a draft. Until Jatin signs on it, then it will become a bill of exchange. So there are initially typically three parties to it. So first is the drawer. This is basically a person who draws the bill. So drawer is a person who issues the instrument in order to receive a payment. Second is the drawee. Drawee is the person who needs to pay the amount to the drawer. And third is the payee. Payee is the person who received the payment. In most of the cases, drawee and the payee are the same individuals.
Yeah.
Next slide, please. So the essentials of bill of exchange are: first, it should be in writing. Second, it is an order to make payment. Third, the order to make payment is unconditional. Fourth, the maker of the bill of exchange must sign it. Fifth, the payment to be made must be certain. Then the date on which payment is made must also be certain. Next slide. So coming to the difference of bill of exchange and promissory note. So bill of exchange comes under section 5 and promissory note comes under section 4. So here bill of exchange is issued by the creditor and promissory note is issued by the debtor. And the parties involved in bill of exchange are three, which are the drawer, drawee, and the payee. And in promissory notes, there are two parties, which is the drawer and the payee. So in terms of acceptance, the drawee needs to accept the bill of exchange before payment, whereas the acceptance is not required in promissory note.
Yeah, correct.
So this is how the bill of exchange looks like. You have the drawee signatures and drawer's name also on it, and the amount and the date specified. Next, this will be taken care by Kopal.
Yes, Kopal will be speaking on the importance of check.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, good afternoon, ma'am. I'll be explaining about the check in detail.
Yeah.
So, my fellow mate also told about the definition of check.
Yeah.
Check refers to a negotiation instrument that contains an unconditional order to the bank to pay a certain sum of method in the instrument from the drawer account to the person to whom it is issued, or to the order to the specified person or the bearer.
Yeah.
Now, next I'll be telling you about the negotiation of check.
Yeah, the transferability of check.
The payee may negotiate the check by endorsing it and transferring it to the another person, who then becomes the holder.
Yeah.
In the normal course of events, a check is negotiated to a depository bank, when then submitted the check of collection through the check clearing system.
Yeah.
Next is transfer by assignment of a check.
Yeah.
Transfer by assignment takes place when the holder of a check sells his right to another person without endorsing it.
Yeah.
The assignee is entitled to get possession and can recover the amount due on the instrument from the parties. Next is the crossing of check.
Why do we do that?
A cross check is a check that has marked specifying an instruction on the way it is to be redeemed. A common instruction for the check to be deposited directly to an account with a bank and not to be immediately cashed by holder over the bank counter. Now, different types of crossings are journal crossings. Journal crossing is when a check bearer bears across its face an additional two parallel transverse lines. That is journal crossing. Next is specific crossing. Check bearer bears across its face an addition to the banker's name.
Yeah.
Then is restrictive crossing.
Yeah.
It directs the collecting bank that he needs to credit the amount of the check only to the account of the payee. Then next is non-negotiable crossing. It is when the word not negotiable are written between the two parallel transverse lines. Next is capacity of a minor.
Yeah. Minor's contract. So you all learned under the Indian contract law, under section 11 of the contract law, a minor is,
other parties will be liable in their respective capacities.
Yeah.
Next is dishonor of the check. The term dishonor refers to the action of refusing to fulfill contractual obligation or pay a charge. Dishonoring a transaction can occur if a seller does not deliver the goods or when the buyer does not provide payments.
Yeah.
Dishonor of check can be for insufficiency of funds in the account when a check drawn by a person on an account maintained by him with a banker for payment of any amount of the money to another person from out of that account for the discharge in whole or in part of any debt or any liability. It is returned by the bank unpaid either because of the amount money standing to the credit of that account is insufficient to honor, or that it exceeds the amount arranged to be paid from that account by an agreement made with the bank. Such person shall be deemed to have committed an offense and shall be punished.
Yeah, correct.
Next is difference between bills of exchange and check.
Yeah.
The check is a document which contains an order to the bank to pay certain amount of money from the account of the customer. Whereas bills of exchange is a document which contains an order to drawee to pay a certain amount to the payee on demand or after a certain time period.
Yeah.
Next is the check is defined in Section 6 of Negotiable Instrument Act 1881, whereas bill of exchange is defined in the Section 5 of Negotiable Instrument Act 1881.
So first bill of exchange Section 5 and Section 6 is check.
Yes. Next is obligation to pay.
4 was promissory note. 4 was promissory note. Hai so Section 4 is promissory note. Section 5 is bill of exchange. Section 6 is check. Yeah.
Check. Next is obligation to pay. The amount which is mentioned in the check is always payable on demand, whereas the amount which is mentioned in the bill of exchange may be payable on demand or after a certain time period.
Yeah, correct.
Next is number of days given as grace. The check is not allowed to have any days of grace after the check is presented for payment to the bank, whereas the bill of exchange is allowed to have 3 days of grace period for payment.
Yeah, and over here I would like to say an important thing, that is noting should be done in case of check. Notary public, that's a lawyer who is a notary public. So we as notary public will notarize that, yes, we note in our register that this particular person had come and a check has been bound. So all these things are required if we need to move the code. So notary public has to note it. Yeah. Yeah. Next
is acceptance. The check. Next is acceptance. The check does not need any acceptance from the parties before it is presented for payments, whereas the bills of exchange needs acceptance from the drawee to pay the amount.
Yeah.
Next difference is crossing of document. The checks can be crossed to ensure the safety against theft of or loss of checks. But in the bills of exchange, there is no such feature as crossing of bills of exchange.
Yeah.
Next is dishonor. Notice of dishonor is not necessary in case of check, whereas notice of dishonor is necessary in case of bills of exchange.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. Next is liability. The parties remain liable to pay even notice of dishonor is not given, whereas the parties who does not receive a notice of dishonor can escape the liability to pay.
Yeah.
Next is validity. The check is only valid for 3 months from the date it is issued, whereas in bills of exchange there is no such thing as validity.
Yeah, correct.
Next is stamp. The check is not required to duly stamped by the authority, whereas bills of exchange must be duly stamped as per Indian Stamp Act.
Yeah.
Next is holder. That will be explained by Kajal.
Yeah, very, very important is the holder in due course. So even the holder in due course can approach a lawyer. So what does the stand in the court? So I'll tell the court that he is a holder in due course. This comes under Section 8. Yeah.
Hello everyone, my name is Kajol and I will be talking about holder. So Section 8 of the Act, definition says that a person is a holder of a negotiable instrument if he is entitled in his own name to the possession of the instrument to recover or receive its amount due from the parties thereto. That is, holder means any person entitled in his own name to the possession of a promissory note, bill of exchange or a check, and to recover the money in his own name. To be a holder, the person must be named in the instrument as the payee or the endorsee or bearer thereof. Next slide. Holder in due course.
Very, very important short note for your exam. It can be, what do you mean by holder in due course? Yeah.
Kajol, can you give an example? Sorry to interrupt.
Hello.
Hello. Kajol.
Holder in due course means, maybe somebody wanted money and that instrument has been given to that particular person and she has transferred some money into that. So naturally, that first party steps into the party who has given the money, steps into the shoes. It's called subrogation. So holder in due course has a right to claim that particular money, even in the court as a petitioner. Yeah, holder in due course. Come on.
So section 9 of the holder in due course means that any person who is for consideration paid becomes the possessor of a negotiable instrument before its maturity in a good faith and without any sufficient reason to believe that any defect existed in the title of the person from
Yeah.
whom he obtained it. So he must be a holder in a due course. He must be a holder of very valuable consideration. He must be a holder of a negotiable instrument before the date of maturity, and he must have that instrument in a good faith. And
Yeah.
if he accepts the or obtains the negotiable instrument after its maturity or
Correct.
in a way of gift or in
Yeah.
an unlawful consideration, some illegal
Yes.
method, so that
Yes.
he is not considered to be the holder in due course.
Yes. So it should be good faith. In law, what is important is good faith. Otherwise, we need to go to the court with clean hands. With clean hands. That's only if that particular person had good faith, then only a holder in due course can get justice. And we need to prove to the court how this check came to her hands. Yeah.
So
Privilege.
there are some rights and privileges granted to holder in due course. So
Yes.
section 36 is liability of prior parties. So it means all the prior parties to a negotiable instrument, that is its maker or drawer, acceptor and intervening endorsers, continue to remain liable to a holder in due course, both jointly and severally. That is, he can hold any or all the prior parties liable until the instrument is duly satisfied. So whereas only preceding party is liable to a succeeding party if the succeeding party is only a holder. Then section 42 is privilege in case of fictitious bill. When a bill of exchange is drawn in a fictitious name and is made payable to the drawer's order, that is where both drawer and pay of bill are fictitious persons. That means that they are fake. So the bill is said to be a fictitious bill. Such a bill is not a good bill and cannot be enforced at law. But the
Yeah.
acceptor of such bill is liable to a holder in due course, provided the latter can show that the first endorsement on the bill and the signature of the supposed drawer are in the same handwriting.
Yeah.
Then Section 46 is no effect of conditional delivery or special delivery. When a negotiable instrument is delivered conditionally or for a special purpose and is negotiated to a holder in due course, a valid delivery of it is conclusively presumed and is acquired good title to it. So, for example, A, the holder of bill endorses it to B or order for the express purpose that B may get it discounted. B does not do so and negotiates it to C, a holder in due course. D acquires a good title to the B and can sue all the parties to it.
Yeah. So they can
Then,
file a suit. The holder in due course here can file a suit against
yes.
all the parties. Yeah.
Then section 53, instrument cured of all the defects when it comes in hands of holders in due course. So a holder in due course who gets the instrument in a good faith in the course of its currency, it is not only himself protected against all the defects of the title of a person from whom he has received it, but also serves as a channel to protect all the subsequent holders. So a holder in due course can recover the amount of the instrument from all previous parties. Although, as a matter of fact, no consideration was paid by some of the previous parties to the instrument, or there was a defect of title in the party for whom he took it. Once the instrument passes through the hands of a holder in due course, it is purged of all defects. It is like a current coin. So it is said to be noted that a holder in due course can purify a defective title but cannot create any title unless the instrument happens to be a bearer one.
Yeah.
So, for example, A obtains B's acceptance to a bill by fraud. A endorses it to C, who takes it as a holder in due course. The instrument is purged of its defect, and C gets a good title to it. In case C endorses it to some other people, he will also get a good title to it, except when he is also a party to the fraud played by A.
Yeah. Correct.
Then section 8 is that he gets a better title than that of the transferor. So one who is a holder only gets no better title than that of his transferor, but a holder in due course is in privileged position in that he gets a better title than that of the transferor, and the defenses on the part of a person liable that the instrument has been lost or has been obtained by means of an offense or fraud or of an unlawful consideration cannot be pleaded against a holder in due course. For example, if P obtains an instrument payable to bearer by theft or fraud or an unlawful consideration, he cannot sue on it. But
Yeah.
if P transfers the instrument to R under circumstances that is for in good faith, so which makes R a holder in due course, R can sue on the instrument. Then the party liable to pay can take as against P the defense of theft or fraud, but as against of R, he will not be able to allow to take such defenses. Then section 188 is they are all the presumptions as to negotiable instruments.
Yeah.
So as of consideration, that every negotiable instrument was made or drawn for consideration, and that every such instrument, when it has been accepted, negotiated, transferred, accepted, endorsed for consideration only.
Yeah.
Then as to date, then
Yeah.
that every negotiable instrument bearing a date was made or drawn on such date. Then
Yeah.
time of acceptance, that every accepted bill of exchange was accepted with a reasonable time after its date and before its maturity.
Yeah.
Then time to transfer, that every transfer of negotiable instrument was made before its maturity. And to order of instruments was that the endorsements appearing upon negotiable instruments were made in the order in which they appear thereon.
Yeah. So
As
if I'm fighting a case for an holder in due course, these are the criteria. Then I need to explain to the court. I need to explain section 118 to the court about the consideration, what she has paid back, or maybe the date of acceptance, when did the transfer took place, what was the endorsement, whether it was signed or not. So then I can get justice for the person who is holder in due course. Yeah.
then as to stamps, that a lost promissory note, bill of exchange or check must be duly stamped. Then that holder is a holder in due course, that the holder of a negotiable instrument is a holder in due course.
Yeah.
Then section 120 is estoppel against denying original validity of an instrument. So the plea of original invalidity of the instrument cannot be put forth against the holder in due course by the drawer of a bill of exchange or check or by acceptor of the honor of the drawer. But where the instrument is void on the face of it, example promissory note made payable to bearer, even the holder in due course cannot recover the money. Similarly, a minor cannot be prevented from taking the defense of the minority. Also, there is no liability if the signatures are forged.
Yeah. Forged
Then,
also.
yes, section 121. Next slide.
Yeah.
Estoppel against denying capacity of payee to endorsee. A holder in due course can claim payment in his own name despite the payee's incapacity to endorse the instrument. So, as per section 51, only a holder or a person in lawful possession of the instrument is competent to endorse. Accordingly, a person who got the instrument for a gambling debt or for unlawful consideration cannot negotiate the same.
Yeah.
However, the holder in due course enjoys a privilege that this regard as in this regard, as he gets a good title even if he holds a negotiable instrument endorsed by a person who got the instrument for unlawful consideration because of section 121, and provides
Yeah.
that as against a holder in due course, no maker of a note and no acceptor of a bill to order shall be permitted to deny the payee's capacity to endorse the same.
Yeah.
Then section 122, estoppel against denying signature or capacity of prior parties. The endorser of a negotiable instrument cannot, in a suit thereon by a subsequent holder, deny the signature or capacity to a contract any prior party to the instrument.
Yeah.
Next will be continued by Natasha.
Yeah. Capacity of parties. It's similar to the contract law. Similar to the contract law, section 10 of the Indian Contract Act. Capacity to parties. If we had done MUD mud, right? Minor and sound minor and all that. So here also there are certain things called capacity of parties. Yeah. Malyashri?
Natasha, just unmute yourself.
Hello.
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah. Capacity of party. It is a legal capability of those involved in a mutual assets of making a contract. It is a valid contract requires that all the parties be legally able to enter into the agreement.
Yes.
Capacity of party is one of the requirement for a valid and binding contract.
Yeah.
Section 26 and 29 extent of liability of different parties.
Yeah.
That is section 26, which is minor. The mentally insane and persons who are under the influence are not considered to be a legal capacity to enter into a contract.
Yes.
The draws and do's delivers as a negotiable instrument. So as to bind all the parties except himself, there are the points. The first is draws and do's. Second is person of unsound mind. Third is joint stock company. Fourth is agent, and fifth is partners.
Yeah. So these are the capacities. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So very nice it was. Nishant Kungar, along with the team, addressed to you a very, very important topic. You want to say something, Nishant?
No, ma'am, that's it. This is all we wanted to present.
Yeah, so that
Thank
was
you,
an
ma'am.
excellent presentation and a very, very important topic pertaining to your this exam, final exam will be. Yes, maybe there can be a short question of bill of exchange. Maybe, define a bill of exchange, define a check as the team mentioned that a check is nothing but a bill of exchange. So you need to know when you go for the exam, what is a bill of exchange, what is a promissory note, what is a holder in due course, and yes, the very, very important provisions of Section 138, Negotiable Instrument Act. The very important provisions of Section 138. I told you the procedures also. So the remedy for a particular person who is aggrieved by some party giving a check without sufficient balance, or maybe some other reasons like frozen account, or maybe certain other stale check or whatever, there's a remedy, and the remedy is not only the civil proceedings but also the criminal proceedings, not only the civil code but also the criminal code. So an expected case study for you is the Negotiable Instrument Act is 138 check bouncing. Okay, thank you all of you. We'll meet after the break of some 10 to 15 minutes. We will be speaking on the very, very important provisions of the SURFACI Act. We'll be speaking on the SURFACI law. Okay.
Ma'am, there is another one of Negotiable Instrument Act.
So one
The
more
check
is
bouncing, ma'am.
Yeah, somebody is going to speak on check bouncing.
We can continue now.
Just please continue. I thought it's over.
No, ma'am.
Just
There is
please
one more
continue.
group.
Yeah, the very important provisions of check bouncing the student has prepared. Yeah, very, very important it is. Come on. That's Kunal Kumar. How are you feeling now? You are not well, na, Kunal?
I'm Kamal.
I'm sorry. Yeah, come on. Please.
Now I'm feeling good.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Come on. So we need to go about it, whatever our conditions, right? Yeah, speak. Yeah, very, very important topic for your exam, check bouncing. Yeah.
So good afternoon, ma'am. My team will be presenting on checks and check bouncing.
Yeah.
So one of our team members couldn't be here, so I'll be introducing on his behalf. Jatin, can you get the next slide, please?
That's a check.
A check. A check is an exchange bill drawn upon a designated banker, which is only payable on demand by the applicant. So as explained by the previous group, that's what a check means. And the essential characteristics of a check are: the check must be in writing. It is an unconditional order. The check must be explicitly specify the bank. The payment that has to be made must be directed to a person or organization, and a check must be payable on demand.
Yes, correct.
And check bouncing means, Jatin, the next slide. Yeah. A check bounce is when an unpaid check is returned back by the bank, also known as dishonor of check. A check bounce can eventuate because of a lot of reasons. For example, insufficiency of funds in the account of the drawer, or many other reasons.
Yeah,
The
correct.
bank always issues a check return memo with the necessary reason for non-payment as soon as the check gets bounced.
Yeah,
It may or may not be the first instance of bouncing of the check.
Yeah, correct.
The further will be continued by Neha.
My topic is a different type of check. First will be a bearer check. When the words or bearer appearing on the face of check are not cancelled, the check called a bearer check.
Correct.
The bearer check is payable to a person specified therein or any other who present it to the bank for the payment. Such check is a risky because if a checks are lost, the finder of the check can collect the payment from the bank.
Yeah.
That's why it is the bearer check is the risky check.
Yeah.
Second will be order check. When the word or bearer appearing on the face of check is cancelled. When in its place the word or order is written on the face of check is called order check. Such check is payable to the person specified therein as the payee or any other else whom it is transferred.
Yeah, correct.
Next will be uncrossed or open check.
Yeah.
When a check is not crossed, it is known as an open check or uncrossed check. The payment of such a check can be obtained at the counter of the bank. An open check may be bearer check or an order check.
Yeah, correct.
Next slide, please. Cross check. Crossing of check means drawing two parallel lines on the face of check with or without additional words like and company, account payee, negotiable, etc. A cross check cannot be encashed at the cash counter of the bank. It is only be credited to the payee's account. Next will be antedated check. If a check bears a date earlier than the date on which it is presented to the bank, it is called ante.
Same like anticipatory breach of
Yeah.
Earlier date.
Earlier.
Yeah.
It is called as an antedated check. Such check is valid up to 6 months from the date of check. Next will be post-dated check. If a check bears a date which is yet to come, or the date is come on the future, then it is known as a post-dated check. Post-dated check is the opposite of an antedated check. A post-dated check cannot be honored earlier than the date on the check.
Yeah.
Next will be stale check. If a check is presented for the payment after 6 months from the date of check, it is called as a stale check. Stale check is also not honored by the bank. Next will be account pay check. A bearer check becomes an account pay check writing an account pay or crossing it twice with the two parallel lines on the left hand side of a check on the top corner. It is considered as the account pay check. It is the one of the safest type of a check.
Yeah, this we do often. This we do often. The account pay check.
It is also known as a cross check. Next slide, please. Banker's check. The banker's check is an instrument issued by the bank, the customer containing an order to pay a certain sum to a specified person within a 3-month validity of periods of a banker's check. However, it is revalidated due to some legal formalities. Traveler's check. It is an instrument issued by the bank for the remittance of money from one place to another because of traveling purpose. Traveler's check are accepted almost everywhere and are available in many denominations. The no expiration features allow to cash in leftover check or retain them the next time for you travel.
Yes, correct.
Next will be self-check.
Self-check.
A self-check is written by the account holder as pays self to receive the money in a physical form from the branch where he holds his account. It comes under a bearer check where instead of writing the name, the account holder writes self or receive a money physically from the branch where he holds his account. For example, Hema ma'am wants to pay me the amount of rupees 10,000. Then ma'am also have written area. It is supposed to used by her or a bearer or written on a check. So whoever possesses that check can go the same branch and bank of the accounts holder to cash the check. Thank you. Next will be presented by Nikhil.
Yeah, so thank you so much. It was very nice. Crossing of check. We often do this. The crossing of check is done for safety. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nikhil, and I'm here to talk about crossing of check.
Yeah.
Crossing of check is nothing but instructing the banker to pay the specific sum to the banker only. That is, the amount on the check has to be deposited directly to the bank account of the payee that we are giving to, and it is not instantly encashed by the holder presenting the check at the bank counter. If any check contains such an instruction, it is called as cross check. Like if a check is being crossed, the amount which is incorporated in the check is being directly transferred to the bank account, not be encashed to any of the holder.
Correct.
The cross check or the crossing of a check is done by making two transverse parallel line at the top left corner across the face of the check.
Yeah.
There are various types of checks. The way a check is crossed specifies the banker on how the funds are to be handled to protect it from the fraud and the forgery. Primarily, it ensures that the funds must be transferred to the bank account only and not to encash it right away upon the receipt of the check. Like depending upon the types of crossing given by the payer to the pay, the banker will accordingly handles the check, and no encashment of check to be provided for the payees. There are several types of crossing. Next slide, please. The first one is general check. When across general crossing. When across the face of a check, two transverse parallel lines are drawn at the top left corner along with the word "and company" between the two lines, with or without using the word "not negotiable." The right part of the image is showing how the general crossing is done in a check. The second type of a check is restrictive crossing. When in between the two transverse parallel line, the word "account payee" is written across the face of the check, then such a crossing is called restrictive check crossing or account paying crossing. In this case, the check can be credited to the account of the stated person only, making it a non-negotiable instrument. Like if the account payee account has been written in the left corner of the check, only that person's account has been credited by the amount through the check. The third type is special crossing. A check in which the name of the banker is written across the face of the check in between the two transverse parallel line, with or without using the word "not negotiable." That means non-negotiable word can be included or cannot be. This type of crossing is called as special crossing. In a special crossing, the paying banker will pay the sum only to the banker whose name is stated in the check or to the agent which is given by the banker. Hence, the check will be honored only when the bank mentioned in the crossing or other orders the same.
Yeah.
The fourth type is non-negotiable crossing. When the word "non-negotiable" is mentioned in between the two transverse parallel line, indicating that the check can be transferred, but the transferee will not be able to have a better title to the check. The fifth and the last type of crossing of check is double crossing, wherein double crossing is when a bank to whom the check crosses specifically further submits the same to the another bank for the purpose of collecting it collection as its agent. In this situation, the second crossing should indicate that it is serving as an agent or the prior banker to whom the check was specifically crossed. For example, if the State Bank of India is the another bank wherein the check is being issued, and the Punjab National Bank is the second bank where the State Bank of India is giving the check to, then the cash and the account will be given and accounted to the Punjab National Bank from the State Bank of India itself. The next will be explained by Mr. Kamal.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kamal Verma, and I will be presenting a legal procedure in case of check dishonor. First of all, receipt of dishonored check with written memo from the bank is given. After that, demand notice within 30 days is issued. In demand notice, 15 days time is to be given to the accused for making payment from the date of the receipt of the notice by the accused. In case of non-payment within 15 days, cause of action arises on the 6th day from the date of the receipt of the notice by the accused. Uh, Next is complaint case under section 138 of Negotiable Instrument Act is to be filed within 30 days from the date of cause of action. We can say from the date of receipt of the notice by the accused. Next slide.
Honor of the check procedure.
Solemn affirmation. It means preliminary evidence either by deposition or by affidavit in evidence to be completed under section 200 CRPC for issue for summon, and after the issue of summon, next phase will be for summon report. In case of summon is served, party has to appear and take bail, and next phase would be plea guilty or not guilty. In case of summon report has not arrived in the court, the court record the next date, court give the next date. In the case of summon is written with such remarks like it doesn't exist incomplete address, etc. And then fresh complete particular to be provided for the issue of fresh summon. And next slide. After the completion of above stage, next stage would be for plea, and after the plea the evidence process will start. In this first date evidence of completion, also called as evidence in chief, will be completed. Then the cross examination of the complaint by the defense lawyer will be completed.
So one minute over here, when you are observing the latest case right now, people now today as a legal, now today you learn so much of procedural laws. So if someone asks, hey, why these people are not getting arrested, so this is the exact reason that he is explaining to you. The pleading stage where we plead on behalf of, maybe for example, if I am the lawyer for the CBI, I'll be starting pleading the case, pleading the case. And therefore the next stage is the evidence stage. And these officers are going to give me the evidence that I need to put up in front of the court. I'm talking about the latest case, that is Hitawa Nation. Okay. So procedures are same whether it is check bouncing or whether it is enforcement directorate or crime branch or whatever. Now you will see today onwards you will realize that yes, after 4-5 days you are going to expect that someone is going to be produced in front of the court, and a prosecutor, maybe a CBI prosecutor, we on behalf of the CBI will plead that these are the evidences and we present it in front of the judge, and then we plead that the judicial custody, maybe police custody. If I want, I may be the prosecutor, and if the CBI officers want more days custody of the accused, more, there are 2-3 accused that they are, confronting now. Investigation is going on. So investigation is also one process of criminal procedure. So once the investigation is over, once they collect the evidences, then only that particular person is shown as arrested, and then they are produced in front of the court. So this is what is explaining to you. That is, a plea will be there, then evidence will be produced, and then the judge will give an appropriate order as per my request. Maybe my team of CBI or maybe my team of ED wants custody, so they will be given PC, that is police custody. In check bouncing cases, it is, the trial goes on and on, and ultimately, but such cases where someone is, abatement of suicide or maybe death of a personality, this is immediate judicial custody is given. They are sent immediately to the, after police custody, the police, the CBI or the DRI or the ED may say that now we don't want anything, we have got all the evidence. So you may, we, the prosecutors, will ask for judicial custody. So that's the important procedures over here he's speaking to you, the procedural law. Cross-examination.
After
That's
the
what
completion of above evidences, examination of the accused under section 313 CRPC by the magistrate take place. And then the evidence of the defense witnesses by the complaint lawyers take place, and the evidence is closed. After the completion of evidence, argument between both the lawyers take place and the judgment is delivered. In the case of check dishonor, the punishment is up to twice of the amount of check and up to 2 years of imprisonment.
Excellent.
Thank you, ma'am.
So yes, very nice. So all of you understood what are the remedies. Yeah.
Yeah. So hello everyone, my name is Kajal Bachao and I'll be talking about the essentials of the offense of bouncing of check. So if Hema ma'am needs to file a case, then number one, a person must have drawn on a check on a bank account maintained by him. Number two, the check should have been issued in discharge in whole or in part of any debt or any liability. Number three, the check has been presented to the bank within the period of its validity, and its validity is 3 months from the date of the check.
Yeah.
Number four, the check is returned by the bank unpaid either because of fund being insufficient or the check exceed the amount of arranged to be paid.
Yeah.
And number five, the payee make a demand for the payment by giving notice in writing within 30 days of a receipt of information by him from the bank. And then also the number six, the drawer fails to make payment of the said amount of money within 15 days of the receipt of said notice, then number seven, complaint is made within 1 month of the date on which the cause of action arises.
Yeah. Cause of action is very, very important.
Yes.
When I start the case in front of the judge, I can't just blabber anything. I need to speak. There's a cause of action. Otherwise, they will dismiss the petition right in front. So these are the importance of pleaders under CRPC and CPC section 3. That particular person to get justice has to be approaching a lawyer, has to speak to the court. So this is how we speak to the court. Yeah. Reasons why the check is dishonored. Yeah.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. I am Nishchay and I will be presenting the reasons why your check is dishonored. So, the first reason is insufficient funds. So, if you don't have sufficient funds to comply with the check request, then the bank dishonors the check. Second reason is irregular signature. If the signature which is on the check doesn't meet with the signature with the bank, then the bank dishonors the check. If there is any alteration on the check, and even if the drawee has signed with the alterations to regarding that it is been complied with, but still then the bank would not allow it, and hence it would dishonor the check. Post-dated checks. Post-dated checks are those checks which have been drawn on one date but are expected to be presented to the bank on a future date. So those checks, if presented before or after the date, then they also get dishonored. You need to present it on the exact date when it is mentioned on the check. Then there is stale check. Stale checks are those checks which have been for which the time period has extended the 3 months of time after the check had been drawn. So any check which has been drawn and 3 months have passed since stands dishonored, the bank will not comply with it. So that is what a stale check is called. Then the next condition is when the payment is stopped. So when the drawee explicitly calls the bank or intimates the bank to not disburse the payment, in that case also the check is dishonored. And then the last condition is frozen account, when there is any reason to believe that there might be some illegal activity or some reason for questioning, and the government authorities impose a freeze on your account.
Yeah.
Neither deposit, neither any withdrawal is possible. Hence, the check stands dishonored.
Yeah. So these are
now the legal remedies for check bouncing will be presented by mate.
Explaining legal remedies for check bouncing. The first one is action under section 138 of Negotiable Instrument Act. Like if there is an expiry of notice period of 15 days, the payee has the right to file a criminal case within 30 days of such expiry of notice period in a court with the help of an experienced lawyer. The second one is civil action as summary suit. This remedy is available for a longer duration of time. Like you can file a summary suit for debt recovery for the amount of check along with interest and legal expenses. Like in this, the NCLT helps the data, like NCLT stands for National Company Law Tribunal. Like in this, there are some following steps that has to be kept in mind. Like there should not be any existing dispute. Data must be solvent on which you are filing a case. Data must be in business and traceable. And the last transaction with the defaulting party must not be over 3 years. Like after in the COVID period, it has been the safest, check has been the safest mode of money and creating trust. Like many people are dealing in credit with the and as a precaution they are having their signed copies of check in advance so that they can file a case. And the third one is criminal action under section 420 Indian Penal Code. This remedy is nature of criminal for the offense of cheating under section 420 of IPC within 3 years for the date of issue of check. The remedy is not directly related to a check bounce case. It is only applicable if you can prove that the drawer cheated you and a dishonest intention to cheat. Like if there is a due date and there has been a stop payment by the check issuer, so you can file a complaint in a criminal and file a complaint under criminal action under 420 IPC. It is an additional remedy in cases where cheating forms a part of the offense.
So intention to commit a crime.
Yeah, ma'am. The next part would be completed by Kennel.
So that's a case he has written about Bangalore District Court.
Ma'am, Kennel isn't a part of the meeting because his laptop has broken down.
Okay, thank you.
So I will continue. So the case is Bangalore District Court, Veena Ravikumar versus L. Prakash. The judgment was passed on 7th July. Next slide, please.
So very, very important it is.
So the first party, that is Veena Ravikumar, gave a hand loan to party B, that is L. Prakash, of rupees 3 lakhs in May 2017, which he promised to return in 6 months, that is in November 2017. So party B, that is L. Prakash, issued a check, a post-dated check dated 6th of November in October end. The check issued by B was not cleared due to insufficient funds. So Veena Ravikumar sued L. Prakash for the act of not honoring the check. Jatin, next slide. Party A claimed that the loan was given to B for a promise of returning of money in 6 months. However, the party B, that is L. Prakash, said that the amount was paid to him in return for a service he provided back in May. The second check issued by B to A was for a loan which A asked, and that's the check that got dishonored. Jatin, next slide, please. So the final court judgment came out to be like this. The complainant, that is A, could not produce the needed evidence to prove that the amount of 3 lakhs was legally recoverable as debt. In the end, the complainant has utterly failed to prove the guilt of the accused for the offence punishable under section 138. Hence, Veena Ravikumar's claim was scrapped and L. Prakash was not held liable for anything, and the check issued by L. Prakash stood cancelled.
Correct.
So the court passed the judgment in favor of L. Prakash.
So this is the thing that is under the Indian Evidence Act. Whichever is the offense that is brought, we bring to the court, we need to have sufficient evidence to prove. I told you just now, maybe negotiable instrument, maybe banking law, maybe, the foreign exchange law, whatever it is, we need to have adequate evidence under the Indian Evidence Act that a particular person, accused person, or whatever we want as, prosecution, we want him to be arrested. So here the case, they explained to you where L. Prakash got a favorable order, under section 138 of Negotiable Instrument Act. Thank you, Dave, so much. Thank you all.
That is all from our side, ma'am.
That's very nice. Very nice, you all did. Excellent. Okay. So just we'll take 5 minutes break, or we need to continue with the foreign exchange management. The service side law.
We can continue, ma'am.
5 minutes break.
Okay. You want 5 minutes break? Okay, we'll come after 5 minutes. Even I
Yes,
will
ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, we'll come after 5 minutes.
Yes, ma'am.